Musicians are easy to make fun of. So easy, in fact, I've got 176 jokes about music and musicians that I'm going to tell in this video. But I have to warn you, since most musicians are sensitive little cupcakes who don't have a sense of humor, some of these jokes might sting. And although many of them zing, there's nothing new to bring, as this compilation combines 4 previous videos into a single thing. So try not to pull a hamstring from laughing too hard, folks. Now here are 176 music-related jokes. What do you call a guitarist who broke up with his girlfriend? Homeless. How do you get a guitarist to stop playing? Put sheet music in front of him. What's the difference between a guitarist and a large pizza? A large pizza can feed a family of 4. What's the difference between a guitarist and a savings bond? Eventually, the savings bond matures and starts to make money. Why did the guitarist get locked out of his house? He couldn't find the right key and didn't know when to come in. Why did the guitarist name his dick Eruption? Because it gets hard fast and only lasts a minute and 42 seconds. What do guitarists and raccoons have in common? They both dig through the trash, live in garages, and only come out at night. What's the difference between a rock guitarist and a jazz guitarist? One plays 3 chords in front of thousands of people, and the other plays thousands of chords in front of 3 people. How do you get a guitarist off your porch? Pay him for the pizza. What's Jimmy Page's favorite chord? A minor. Ian Watkins works even better if you know who he is. What does a stripper do with her asshole before she goes to work? She drops him off at band practice. A woman is on trial for beating her husband to death with his guitar collection. The judge says, first offender? She says, no, first a Gibson, then a Fender. I wish I got to see Damage Plan before they broke up. From what I hear, Dimebag's last solo was fucking killer. Randy Rhoads, my all-time favorite guitarist, was way ahead of his time, especially that last 100 feet before hitting the garage. While it's true that you can't kill rock and roll, you can kill Randy Rhoads. What does Randy Rhoads, Buddy Holly, and Stevie Ray Vaughan have in common? They all lived to shred on the guitar and died by getting shredded to pieces in the air. What's the difference between Eric Clapton and coffee? Coffee doesn't suck without cream. What do you call a guitarist in a suit? The defendant. How do you get 2 guitarists to play in unison? Shoot one of them. Why couldn't the fisherman play his guitar? Because he lost his tuna. What's the difference between a guitar and a tuna fish? You can tune a guitar, but you can't tune a fish. What's the difference between a guitarist and God? God doesn't think he's a guitarist. What does a guitar player say when he gets to his gig? Would you like fries with that? What does a guitar and a lawsuit have in common? Everyone is relieved when the case is finally closed. How many electric guitar players does it take to change a light bulb? 5. 1 to change it and 4 to discuss how Jimi Hendrix would have done it. How many lead guitarists does it take to change a light bulb? None. They just steal somebody else's light. Why is playing lead guitar like having a big dick? Because even though most people aren't going to notice or care, you talk about it constantly anyway. What do you call a guitarist who says that rhythm guitar is just as important as lead? Wrong. What does your vacuum cleaner and electric guitar have in common? They both start sucking as soon as they're plugged in. How can you tell if your electric guitar is out of tune? If the strings are vibrating. How do you invite a guitarist to a party? Cordially. What do you call the guitar you inherit from your parents? An air guitar. Why are so many Guitarist Jokes one-liners? So the rest of the band can understand them. What do all great guitarists have in common? They're all dead. How many strings does a bass guitar have? 4 too many. Why does a bass have 4 strings? In case you break 3. What do you say to a bassist with a gorgeous woman on his arm? Nice tattoo. What did the bassist get on his IQ test? Drool. Why don't bass players like dating guitar players? They're too much treble. How many bass players does it take to change a light bulb? It doesn't matter, bass players are never in the limelight anyway. Why don't bass players tell blonde jokes? Because they don't understand them. What do you call someone who hangs around with musicians? A bass player. What do you call a bassist with 2 brain cells? Pregnant. What do bassists eat for breakfast? Slapjacks. How many bassists does it take to change a light bulb? None. The keyboardist will just take care of it with his left hand. What's the range of a bass guitar? About 20 yards if you've got a good arm. How can you tell if a bassist is successful? His girlfriend has a job. What's the difference between a bassist and a vibrator? The vibrator can keep steady rhythm and is capable of making someone happy. Why did the bassist lose custody of his kids? Because he couldn't provide a stable foundation. What do you call a metal bassist who tells you he's also the songwriter of his band? A liar. What's the difference between a metal bassist and a fog machine? One costs hundreds, makes noise, and does nothing. The other is a fog machine. How do you play any corn song on the bass? Just slap your dick against the low B string and start mumbling about your daddy issues. How do you get a metal bassist to stop playing? Doesn't matter because you can't hear him anyway. A husband and wife go to see a marriage counselor for help with their relationship. The counselor tries several therapy techniques, but nothing works. Finally, he picks up a bass guitar and starts playing. The couple look at each other, not sure what's going on, but then they open up and begin talking. After a while, they start feeling better. The counselor finishes playing and puts down the bass. At the end of the appointment, the couple thanks the counselor and asks him why in the world he picked up the bass halfway through the therapy session. The counselor replies, "Everybody talks during a bass solo." How many bassists does it take to change a light bulb? One, but the guitarist has to show him how to do it. What's the difference between a bench and a bassist? A bench can support a family of 4. A bass player walks into a store, goes up to the counter, and says to the clerk, "I'd like to buy a Starburst Les Paul Classic, and I'm going to need a Marshall half-stack to play it through. I'm thinking a JCM 2000 with a 1960 AV. That should be enough to play gigs, right?" "You're a bass player, aren't you?" the store clerk asks. Surprised, the bass player replies, "Yes, I am. How did you know?" The clerk replies, "Because this is a grocery store." What do you throw a drowning bass player? His amp. What do bassists use for contraception? Their personality. What do you tell the bassist with 2 black eyes? Nothing. He's already been told by the guitarist and the drummer. I thought I discovered how to play the brown note on bass. Turns out it was just a minor turd. What do Geddy Lee and a Roomba have in common? Both make weird noises while multitasking and are worshipped by a small but loyal cult. What are the 3 most difficult years of a bass player's life? 2nd grade. What's the difference between a vacuum cleaner and a bassist? The vacuum needs to be plugged in to suck. What's the difference between a dead squirrel on the road and a dead bassist? There are skid marks in front of the squirrel. What's another difference? The squirrel was on his way to a gig. What do you call someone who is tone deaf but likes to hang out with musicians? A drummer. 2 drummers are in the backseat of a car. Who's driving? The cops. How many drummers does it take to screw in a light bulb? 10. 1 to do it and 9 to comment on how Neil Peart could have done it better. A drummer and a bassist walk past a bar. Just kidding. No, they don't. How many drummers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They have machines to do that now. How can you tell when a drummer is at your door? Because the longer he knocks, the faster it gets. What's the difference between a guitarist and a drummer? The guitarist sleeps with his own girlfriend. How do you make a bassist? Bang a guitarist's head against the wall, but not too hard or he'll come out a drummer. Why do the best bass players play so simply? So the drummer can understand. What do you call a drummer with half a brain? Gifted. What else do you call the drummer with half a brain? Overqualified. Did you hear about the drummer who finished high school? Neither did I. Why do guitarists put drumsticks on the dashboard of their cars? So they can park in handicap spots. Want more drummer jokes? I got a zillion of them. What's the difference between a drummer and a toilet? A toilet only has to take shit from one asshole at a time. 2 drums and a cymbal fall off a cliff. Ba-dum-ts. What's the difference between a drummer and a drum machine? You only have to give the drum machine instructions once. What's another difference between a drummer and a drum machine? A drum machine won't try to fuck your girlfriend. What does a sneeze have in common with a drum solo? Even though you know it's coming, there's nothing you can do about it. What does the blonde woman have in common with the drummer? Neither of them can tell time. 3 guys are standing around. A drummer with bad timing, a drummer with good timing, and a wizard. A $20 bill falls from the sky and lands in the middle of them and they all reach for it. Who gets it? The drummer with bad timing because the other 2 don't exist. What do you call the smartest drummer in the world? Mildly retarded. What do you call the drummer who says he can read music? A liar. What did the drummer name his 3 daughters? Anna 1, Anna 2, Anna 1, 2, 3, 4. How do you spot a pretentious drummer? By all of their status symbols. Why did the drummer complain about his salad? Because it didn't have any beats. What happened to the drummer who refused to stop playing? There were serious repercussions. Why do drums make a better gift than a guitar? Because they come with no strings attached. There are 3 types of drummers, those who can count and those who can't. Why did a drummer get a tattoo of his own kit? For the symbolism. A drummer asked if I wanted to sing in his band. I said, "Count me in." Why are breaks between sets usually only 15 minutes? So the drummer doesn't forget how to play. Why didn't the little drummer boy get into heaven? Because he woke up the baby, for Christ's sake. How does a drummer show that he's planning for the future? He buys 2 cases of beer instead of 1. Little Billy says to his mother, "Mom, I want to be a bassist when I grow up." She replies, "Now Billy, you know you can't do both." How many drummers does it take to change a light bulb? Only 1, but he'll go through an entire box of bulbs to find just the right one. How do you make a drummer's eyes light up? Shine a flashlight in his ear. A cowboy and an Indian chief stood on a hill. They could hear the pounding sound of war drums getting closer. "I don't like the sound of those drums," the cowboy said. The Indian chief replied, "I know, he's not our usual drummer." Why did the drummer stare at the frozen juice can? Because it said concentrate. What do you call a drummer in a Volkswagen? Far from thinking. Why are drummers always losing their watches? Because they have trouble keeping time. What do you call 10 people in a drum circle? A dope ring. What has 3 legs and an asshole? A drum stool. Why would anyone ever want to become a drummer? Beats me. Why did the drummer move to LA? Because it's the only city with a name he could spell. My next door neighbor knocked on my door at 3 a.m. Would you believe that? 3 in the morning. Luckily for him, I was already awake playing my drums. How do you make a drummer laugh on Saturday? Tell him a joke on Wednesday. How do you get a one-armed drummer like Rick Allen out of a tree? Wave to him. What do 100 drummers at the bottom of the ocean sound like? A pretty good idea. Why did the musician get arrested? Because he got in trouble. Why does Snoop Dogg carry an umbrella? For drizzle. How do you find Will Smith in the snow? Look for Fresh Prince. What has 54 legs and 23 teeth? The first row of a country concert. What's the difference between a keyboardist and a pigeon? One has the ability to make a deposit on a new car. How do you know when a lead singer is knocking at the door? Because he doesn't know when to come in and he can't find his key. How many jazz musicians does it take to change a light bulb? None, because none of them can afford a bulb. Why did the robbers break into the music store? So they could steal the loot. What is Beethoven doing right now? Decomposing. Everyone told Beethoven that he couldn't be a musician because he was deaf, but he didn't listen. What's Beethoven's favorite fruit? Banana. Why couldn't Beethoven find his music teacher? Because he was hiding. Which concert only cost 45 cents? A concert featuring 50 Cent and Nickelback. What does Jerry Lee Lewis's favorite musical term have in common with his third wife? They're both a relative minor. What's the definition of a gentleman? Someone who knows how to play the accordion but doesn't. What is a bassoon good for? Kindling for an accordion fire. What's the difference between an accordion player and a terrorist? Terrorists have sympathizers. What's the difference between an accordion and a trampoline? You have to take your shoes off to jump on a trampoline. What's the definition of perfect pitch? When you throw a banjo in the garbage and it lands perfectly on top of an accordion. What's the difference between a banjo and an onion? No one cries when you chop the banjo into pieces. Why did the band hire a baseball player? Because he had perfect pitch. Why couldn't the printer stop making music? Because the paper kept jamming. What kind of music are balloons afraid of? Pop music. What song do all vampires hate? House of the Rising Sun. What song do all tornadoes love? The Twist. Why are pirates such good singers? Because they can hit the high seas. What is a pirate's favorite instrument? The guitar. What is every rapper's favorite adhesive? Mixed tape. What kind of song do the planets sing? Neptunes. What do you get when you drop a piano down a mine shaft? A flat minor. What do you get when you drop a piano on a military base? A flat major. What's the difference between a bull and an orchestra? With the bull, the horns are in the front and the asshole is in the back. Why is a conductor the same as a condom? It's safer with one, but more fun without. Why do prisoners make such bad musicians? They're always behind a few bars. Why can't violins be heard in a symphony orchestra's recording? Because the first thing an audio engineer does is remove any annoying noises. How do you know you're being kissed by a French horn player? She tries to stick her fist up your ass. How many folk singers does it take to change a light bulb? 6. 1 to change the bulb and 5 to sing about how good the old one was. 2 windmills are standing in a field. One asks the other, "What kind of music do you like?" It replies, "I'm a big metal fan." How many indie hipsters does it take to change a light bulb? It's an obscure number, you probably haven't heard of it. What's the favorite band of every Jehovah's Witness? The Doors. Why couldn't the string quartet find their composer? Because he was hiding. Why couldn't the classical musician concentrate at the tavern? There was too much bar talk. I've got so many classical composer jokes, I could write you a list. In fact, I've got more classical composer jokes than you can even handle. Why didn't Handel go shopping? Because he was Baroque. Why did Mozart get rid of his chickens? Because they kept saying, "Bach, Bach, Bach, Bach." Did you hear about the musician who committed suicide? He didn't even leave a note. Middle C, E flat, and G walk into a bar. The bartender says, "Sorry, we don't serve minors here." What's got 10 legs and 9 arms? Def Leppard. What mythical creature is the best at keeping time? A metronome. What type of music do golf clubs listen to? Swing. What type of music do frogs and rabbits listen to? Hip-hop. Where do pianists like to go on vacation? The Florida Keys. Why did the cow start taking piano lessons? Because he wanted to be a musician. How do you make a bandstand? Take away their chairs. Why do bagpipers walk while they play? To get away from the awful noise. When I was young, I wanted to play the guitar really badly. Now, decades later, I can honestly say that I can play the guitar really badly. I sprained a finger playing the piano today. But, on the other hand, I'm fine. What's the difference between a saxophone and a lawnmower? Your neighbor gets mad if you don't return the mower after borrowing it. What's the difference between a high school music teacher and a chimpanzee? It's been scientifically proven that chimps can communicate with humans. Why do fish make good musicians? Because they know their scales. What's the difference between a fiddle and a violin? Who cares? Neither one is a guitar. What do you call it when a group of lizards try to form a band? A reptile dysfunction. Do you know any good music-related jokes that I missed? Tell me in the comments. Thanks for watching. Please share this video with friends who might like it on social media or by tagging a friend in the comments. Share everywhere to make people aware. Share here, share there, share anywhere. I swear it's fair. Thanks, be well, take care.